Alright guys, welcome back to the video. So we're at a very interesting point in the woodworking times here because I don't have any big upcoming projects. I've finished both of my big recent projects and I'm kind of in this lull point of I need to find something to keep myself entertained. So as you guys have seen over this past week, I've just been kind of finding little things that I can do here and there that aren't super big, that aren't going to take up a whole bunch of space or time because I don't really have the shop at the moment. But after this weekend, hopefully I'll have that king size bed out of here and I can start moving on to some bigger and better projects. And so I wanted to make a video talking about how I get my ideas for what projects I want to do. Because as some of you may not believe, not everything is just stored in my brain. I can't just whip out a piece of furniture without any kind of thought or planning. And I know most of you who have designed furniture, or anyone who really does woodworking knows exactly what I'm talking about here. We don't just have, a million ideas of things that we just want to whip together. Sometimes you have to actually sit there and develop an idea. You might have something like, oh, I want to build a bench or I want to build a table. You might have that idea in your mind, but you don't always know exactly what you want it to look like. And so it's very important to take the time to develop your ideas and figure out more so what you want to do. So I'm going to show you guys my 3 different places that I look for ideas and how I kind of ruminate some of those ideas when I don't actually have something specific that I want to build. Like right now, I have a whole bunch of different ideas of things I want to do. And so because I have so much open time right now, I'm able to just kind of dive in, pick whatever projects I possibly want to do, and just kind of do them. So the other consideration with this though is right now, I also am on a pretty tight budget. I don't have any potential income coming in anytime soon. So that is going to be kind of iffy. I'm probably going to have to stop these daily uploads and go and get a job pretty quickly here. But I still am working off of the money that I made over the summer from those 2 big commissions and a little bit of the money that I made off of those markets and the savings that I have for my job at the, that I quit at the beginning of the year. So that's the big thing here is I'm on a pretty strict budget. So it's not like I'm going to be building like a big trestle table or a king size bed for myself, big projects that either have a ton of materials in them or will require me to buy more expensive tools or machinery, stuff like that. I want to try and find projects that I can mainly work with the wood that I have, maybe buy a little bit more wood, but mostly I'm building stuff that is more achievable. Smaller projects that I can, turn out more things, but also still be doing pretty cool stuff. So like I said before, I have 3 different places that I look when I'm trying to find ideas for things that I want to do. And the first one is always going to be books. So these are my 5 favorite books when it comes to anything to do with furniture design, anything to do with, finding projects and that. You can find all of these books. There will be a link in the description to my website. I've got a tab out there called Library, and that's just all the different woodworking related books that I have that I highly recommend. These ones are some of my favorites. So to go through them quickly, we have the Illustrated Cabinet Making Guide. This one is really awesome, especially when you're first getting into woodworking. It has a whole bunch of just definitions of different types of furniture. Now, I can't show you guys inside any of these books because I'm pretty sure that goes against some pretty strict copyright laws. I know that I'm allowed to show them on camera, but I'm not allowed to actually show inside of them. So I got to be very careful about that. But I will say that if you end up getting this book, if you look at page 276, you'll probably recognize that project. It's very similar to something that I built in the past here. And that's exactly where I kind of get some of these ideas from. So this is a very good book when you're just getting into woodworking because it tells you the size things need to be. If you want to know things like how tall a desk should be so it can be at the proper height for, for your elbows and all that to sit comfortably at. If you want to know how tall tables and chairs and all that kind of stuff, this is a really good book for that. It's not just about cabinet making. It has all kinds of furniture in it. It is mainly focused around cabinet making, but it definitely focuses around a lot more of our traditional style. It's not like, plywood cabinet making. It's actually like traditional cabinet making, which is pretty dang cool. My personal favorite is Shop Drawings of Shaker Wooden Furniture, volumes 1, 2, and 3. This is probably one of the biggest influences in my woodworking. I've done tons of projects out of this book. As you can see, I go through and I bookmark all the different things that I want to do or that I have done. And this one has probably the most tabs of all of them. One of the best ones I found, especially if you like Shaker style furniture, these are the original shop drawings that the Shakers would have worked off of. So there's a ton of good information in that one as well. Another really good one is Making Authentic Craftsman Furniture. Again, if you like craftsman style furniture like I do, this is a really good book. It has some fairly simple plans in it and overall, pretty simple projects. Another really good one is How to Build Shaker Furniture. Again, this one's been a massive influence because the whole front section is talking about how the Shakers actually went about building their furniture, different tools and that you'll need. And then the back end is just a whole bunch of different fairly approachable projects. A lot of the projects that are in here are also in that other Shaker book I talked about before, so you don't really need both, but this one definitely has a whole lot of really good information in the front side that will really help you, if you're just getting started into woodworking or you're wanting to explore the Shaker style a little bit more. The final one here is the one that definitely helped me out the most when I was getting into woodworking, and that is the Great Book of Shop Drawings for Craftsman Furniture. This book has 61 different projects in it, all with a full set of plans, cut list, everything you could possibly need to know about these projects. It's all in this book, and it's some really great information. So the benefit of a book is that you're paying one time for a decent amount of stuff. Again, this shop drawings book I think is like 40 or 50 bucks on Amazon, and it comes with 61 sets of plans. So that's a pretty good bang for your buck. That's even better than, my website. I sell my plans for like 15 bucks a piece for some of the more complicated stuff. So that's really good bang for your buck. But when we talk about the other two ways, which are digital, it becomes a little bit more harder to find detailed information. Whereas with a book, you know that most of the information you're going to need is going to be contained within these pages. You're not going to have to go and find alternate sources to explain the stuff you're seeing in here. Most of it should be explained in here. But again, if you're just getting into woodworking, this is the #1 recommendation. If you're starting to get a little bit more advanced with your woodworking, this is my second recommendation. This one would be third because the projects are starting to get a little bit more complex and it takes a little bit more technical knowledge to understand what's in there. Then finally, these two are kind of just bonus information. A lot of the projects that are in these two books are also in those first two books, so you can kind of take your pick on which ones you want there, but definitely that would be the order that I would recommend getting those in. So like I said, books are a really good way of getting a lot of information for a decent amount of money. Again, they're not always going to be the most creative things, and the books that have a lot of the more creative plans not in them are generally going to be more on the expensive side. So it's, so there's pros and cons to them, but definitely being able to get a book gives you a whole lot of technical knowledge. Being able to work off of those traditional shaker and craftsman style builds is super helpful for just building your own understanding of how big things need to be. Because that was the hardest thing for me when I started getting into wanting to design my own furniture, is just how big things need to be. How tall should a countertop be? How tall should a desk? There's a whole bunch of stuff like that where until you start to see like actual sizes and numbers in something like a book or a set of plans, it becomes very confusing if you're just kind of looking at pictures online of what size things tend to be. My second favorite place to look is Pinterest. Now, I know that as a guy, you don't probably want to spend a whole lot of time on Pinterest. It's mainly for, your girlfriend planning your wedding kind of thing in your own nightmares. But Pinterest is actually a very valuable resource for finding projects that you might want to work on and finding a lot of information about them. In case this is the first time you're ever hearing about Pinterest, it's actually a really good resource because how it works is you can find any picture on the internet, save it to your profile, add notes and all that, and it just saves an image with a link to that site and all your notes that you want to make about it. Then on the Pinterest site, you can go through and find all the other pictures that other people have saved, and you can just find it, and it's just a really good way to find a ton of information. So if you just type in, things like find woodworking furniture, handmade furniture, wood furniture, key things like that, or if you want to get more specific, things like, cabinetry, boxes, handcrafted boxes, stuff like that, those kind of keywords that you might be looking for a specific project, you can find tons of examples. And so I've got one of my boards opened up here, and these are just all the different projects that as I've been scrolling through Pinterest or I've been, browsing online, these are all the different things that I've saved. And just a ton of different ideas. And what I really like about this is I just got a ton of pictures that I can then work from. So you can see recently I've been thinking a lot about, blanket chests and that. I really love blanket chests for some reason. They're a really cool touch. But there's all kinds of really interesting ideas here. Like you can see this one here. We've got a nice simple blanket chest that's somewhat similar to the one that I built previously, but it's got this floating tray in it that's actually pretty cool. And so if I just kind of keep scrolling through here, I can keep seeing all these different ideas of just things that I've saved in the past that I can go back to in the future and use them for a project or something. So again, up at the top here, we've got a lot of blanket chests. We're starting to get into a little bit more cabinetry, some keepsake boxes. This one is actually a really interesting one because I hated the look of this piece. It's a really ugly piece of furniture, but I love the idea because the outside of it is painted this beautiful dark green, something that would be a little more of a subtle piece of furniture in your house. And the reason I saved this one specifically is because this is right around the time that I was starting to learn about milk paint and the way that milk paint can interact with woods like ash, where it soaks into the paint a lot more like a stain, but gives you a very good consistent color over the top. So doing a project like this, where the outside is painted one color with milk paint and then you've got the natural wood interior, could look super cool. And it's just an idea that I really love. Going through here, you're going to see a lot of stuff from Mike Pejkovic. He's one of my biggest inspirations when it comes to woodworking. One of the projects I actually want to plan out upcoming here is a barrister bookcase. So I've got all these different designs here, different styles and that of just stuff that I really like. Again, going in, more cabinetry, tall sideboards, stuff like that, wardrobes, kitchen dinettes, just stuff like that. The final one here is Instagram. Now, this is one of my favorite places to find, more recent, more up-to-date ideas because I follow a lot of woodworkers on Instagram. And every time I see an idea that is like super cool, something that I want to either incorporate into one of my projects or I want to kind of base a design off of, I save it to my Instagram. All you have to do is hit that little bookmark icon, start a collection, and it's a pretty simple way to do it. And so just scrolling through here, you can see that I've got a whole bunch of just different random ideas that all kind of, come together and are just different things I want to do. Now, I don't use Instagram nearly as much as I use Pinterest. I much prefer, sitting on my computer in the evening, I scroll through Pinterest, I kind of visit a whole bunch of different woodworking forums and save stuff to my Pinterest board. But Instagram, again, is a very good resource because it's very easy to find a ton of different stuff, from woodworkers that I actually follow and people that I could potentially contact with questions about these projects. So all kinds of different stuff on here. Again, everything from something like spoons and bowls up to like this bench that I really want to build something similar to it because I think it's just such an awesome design style. And this incorporates perfectly in with one of the books that I have. This is a shaker style bench that is almost the same as in one of the books. So I basically have all the designs in that I want, and this is seeing exactly how someone actually built it. And so it is actually super simple to just go around and find ideas for what you want to make. Again, as you guys have seen, I've got all these different books that I can go through. I've got Pinterest, and hundreds of pins on there that I can look through. I have a few things saved on Instagram that I can go through and see what where I want to get some inspiration from. And the biggest thing here is that when you're looking at these images, looking in the books, looking at Instagram and all that, you don't want to be looking at it as I want to take this thing and I want to copy it exactly in my own shop and then I want to sell it for money. That's a pretty dirty thing to do. At that point, you're just plagiarizing an idea from another woodworker. You don't really want to be doing that. So one of my favorite things to do here when you think about furniture design is, like I said, I'm thinking about doing a barrister bookcase fairly soon here. And so if I look at this image here on Pinterest, what I can do is I can look at this and go, okay, what would I change? Before I jump into trying to design a piece of furniture, I want to know kind of what the goal is of the piece of furniture in the first place. So I know that with this barrister bookcase, we want to make all these individual capsules that stick together somehow. And this is kind of what one person envisioned when they thought of it. So I can go through here and look and go, okay, well, I like this design style, but I don't like these things. Then I can go back to my Pinterest board and go, okay, well, I've got this other one saved. Okay, let's take a look at what I like, what I don't like. That is a very expensive bookcase right there. But that is the kind of the idea here, is that you're going through and you're collecting all these different ideas. So when you're sitting down to do a project, exactly like this barrister bookcase, I can take some design ideas from this one, I can take some design ideas from this other one, and then I can add my own incorporated ideas. Stuff like that that's going to make your piece completely individual and special compared to everything else out there. So that's where you want to start with furniture design, is just going around and seeing what exists out there. Because if you try to design furniture in a vacuum, it's never going to be as good as if you take inspiration from all the other genius people that exist in this world. Just by the fact that a lot of you are subscribed to me, you see the furniture that I design, that I build, and that is one influence on your building style. It's really funny to hear from some of you guys in the comment section about how, you've been woodworking for years, way longer than I have. But sometimes I'll bring up a design style and I'll get a comment of like, oh, that's a great idea. I might incorporate that into one of my projects. It's little things like that all of us woodworkers share with each other that just makes every piece of furniture better. And again, that's the whole reason why I make these videos, is to share the ideas, get them out into the public sphere so that everyone has an opportunity to learn this information. It's one of those things where anytime I talk to a woodworker in person, I always try to convince them, even if you don't want to, make YouTube videos like I do, try posting on Instagram. Just share those ideas. Not only are you going to help other woodworkers improve their own designs, people are going to comment on your pictures, comment on your designs of either things that you could think about changing, or, they might just tell you that it's a great idea and just confirm what you already think. So it's one of those things, is the sharing of ideas is such a valuable thing. With modern technology like Instagram and Pinterest here, it is so easy to find a ton of different ideas. Now, once you have all of these ideas in front of you, that's where it becomes more challenging to figure out what the heck you actually want to do. So this is where I like to just grab a notebook and I sit here and I look at all the different projects that I have saved, either tagged in the books, sitting here on Pinterest or on Instagram. Any one of these places, I go through and I figure out, okay, what projects do I actually want to do at the moment? So I actually have already gone through and done this, and I've picked out some projects that I think are actually going to be stuff that I want to take on pretty soon here. And I've gone through and added them to the tasks on my Google Calendar. Now, here's my Google Calendar so you guys know exactly how my day-to-day looks. Basically, every day I wake up, I eat breakfast, I take my dog for a walk, then I'm in the shop from 7:30 until about 5 o'clock. At that point, I go and eat supper, then I go and edit the day's video. So it's a pretty busy schedule. Apparently, I don't have anything on Sunday because I forgot to schedule things properly there. So that's how I go about planning out my week, so just so I know what the heck I'm doing. Then in the top here, you can see exactly what my video plan for the day is. So today you can see project planning and design. That's exactly what we're talking about in this video. Tomorrow's video, we're going to be working again on that laminated axe. That's going to be a pretty cool one. On Saturday, it's a pretty short day because I don't have it actually scheduled in here, but I'm going to a market for the whole afternoon and evening. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of a shorter video on why you need a bandsaw in your shop. Really good plan there. Then from there on Sunday, we're moving on to a hand tool only project. So that's going to be an interesting one. Then on the to-do list here, you can start to see some of the projects that I've been thinking about, just stuff that I'm actually wanting to jump onto and start working on. So I've got a laminated canoe paddle, a chessboard, a knife, marking knife, barrister bookcase, a mirror cabinet, which is something I'm actually going to design next week on camera for you guys before I submit it to a potential customer to see if they're interested in actually going ahead with the commission. Then I also have the paddle that I actually started in the live streams that I kind of gave up on. I've got it sitting actually right behind the camera right now that I would love to finish and get it out there because it's a solid piece of cherry that I think would be really cool. Then this is where you can kind of start to see things come together. As you can see on the last one here is the tall side cabinet, and then I have a Pinterest link linking back to the thing that I want to kind of take inspiration from, which if we click on it here is these guys here. So it's a tall side cabinet. I couldn't really think of a better way to explain it, but it's something that is a pretty cool piece of furniture in my opinion. And it's something that is small enough that I can approach right now on a pretty tight budget, but it is also something I could do some pretty cool stuff with. You know, it's got a glass door, all that kind of stuff. So it's not that I want to build exactly that. In fact, there's a lot of things about that specific one that I don't quite like, but that's kind of the jumping off point that I want to go from. And so sometimes Pinterest is really good about showing stuff that is the same or similar to the stuff that you're looking at already. So if I just scroll down here, we can actually see that there's some stuff that has just different ideas incorporated into them. So they're not all going to be relevant, but there's just, again, different ideas that are brought in here that you can take inspiration from. And so that brings me to the final point of how I approach furniture design is I do everything in SketchUp. I don't draw anything, and it's purely because my brain does not work in that way. So I actually have my associate's degree or, college diploma in graphic design. So I did a 2-year course in it, and through that course, I learned a whole crap ton of stuff about graphic design, and that actually gave me a pretty good understanding of how to do a lot of the stuff that I do for my YouTube channel here. But the one thing that never worked for me when I was doing that diploma is that they always wanted me to draw my designs. I always had to submit my drawings before I could submit the final artwork. But for some reason, just the way that my brain works, I can never get a design that I have in my head going through my hand, through the pencil, and onto paper. It never works out. Because one of the biggest issues I have, and this is extremely prevalent in furniture design, is I like things to be to scale. I like to have straight lines. I like to have things fairly accurate. I don't really like organic shapes in that. And so that's a big stumbling block for me because I end up sitting there with my sketchbook and I'm sitting there with a ruler and I'm measuring things out and I'm trying to get precision lines and because I like things to be to scale because I don't have the ability in my own brain to communicate between, the drawing that I have on paper to kind of be more of what I want in my head. So with graphic design, I would always jump into like Illustrator, work on a whole bunch of different designs, figure out what I wanted. Then I would always cheat by going back and sketching things out, sketching out some of my designs that I had on there. So I was very good at kind of bending the rules there. With furniture design, obviously, no one is forcing me to draw things, which is really great. So generally what I'll do is I'll jump into SketchUp and just start making a whole bunch of things. So a perfect example of this is the king bed frame. So if I go into my SketchUp file here, you can see that I started with my 4 initial designs. I had an idea in my head of what I wanted this bed to look like, but I also wanted to experiment with some different designs and options. So I knew overall what kind of the shape and design of the bed would be, and I wanted to kind of figure out some different design options. And so once I had my initial designs, I could go back in and kind of refine them to get to the final design. Now, you can see here, this is the bed that actually is the final version of the one that is sitting behind me here. And it is exactly the same as what is sitting behind me here. And it's very similar to one of my initial designs, except for you can see that the sideboards go all the way down to the ground, or about an inch off the ground. They have about an inch of clearance. So it's a very simple thing like that. So it's really all about finding what works best for you. Some people think much more organically and can sit there with a pen and paper or pencil and paper and draw out their designs and figure out what they want to make. Other people like me cannot do that. It's just not something that is an option for us. And when people like me get forced to sit there and draw out our designs, we generally can't come up with anything good, or we end up sitting there wasting so much time focusing on a single design because we can't get it perfect that we end up not getting enough different ideas onto the paper anyway to really be anything helpful. So that's the biggest thing I'll recommend here is that, the best thing you can do is sit down and try to draw stuff out, because for some people, drawing works. If you really cannot get a design to go from your brain onto that paper in a way that you're happy with, try jumping into something like SketchUp. SketchUp is a free program. You can do all your 3D design and modeling on there completely for free. You can turn it into a set of plans, all that kind of stuff, all for nothing. It's a great program. It's a great piece of software to learn because it's completely free and it lets you turn a flat model into a 3D model. So for some people, that is going to be what works out really well. But again, don't ever feel like because you see, people like, I think Mike Pekovich, he's a big one for, he draws every design that he has, and then I think he does it, moves into SketchUp, stuff like that. But don't feel like you have to go through and draw things out, because for some people, that's just never going to work. You're just never going to be able to get your brain to connect to your hand properly in order to draw that thing. But you might be able to go into SketchUp and design the exact piece of furniture you want to build. which is exactly what I've done on basically everything. Now, the other thing you can do here is actually just go completely freehand into a project. Now, I will tell you that this does come with some risks. In that you can end up losing track of what you want to do in a project, or things can kind of go off the rails pretty quickly, but it is another fun thing to do. A perfect example of this is the book matched white oak cabinet that I built at the end of last year. I just kind of jumped into that project, not really with any ideas in mind, because I didn't really know what I was going to be able to get out of those 8-quarter pieces of wood after I book matched and did all that kind of stuff. So I just kind of went for whatever I could get. And on some smaller projects, that's a really fun thing to do, because you just kind of go with the flow of the project. I would recommend, if you're doing things like a bed frame, cabinetry, bigger pieces of furniture, you'd try and avoid doing that. Generally, it's better to go into a project with some kind of a plan. But on occasion, if you're doing things like keepsake boxes, trays, small things, it can be very fun to just kind of jump into it and see what you can create. So the important thing is to not limit yourself into what you can design, what kind of stuff you want to work on, because that should never be a limitation in woodworking. You can always buy a set of plans. You can always find inspiration online of stuff that you may have never thought of. There's all kinds of things you can do to find different projects. So hopefully with what I talked about here, looking at books, looking at Pinterest, looking at Instagram, you can find some really cool ideas to help inspire you and keep you going out to the shop and working on projects. And obviously, because you're watching my videos, hopefully I can inspire you to help get you out back into the shop, get you working on projects, stuff like that. And if you guys have any questions about furniture design, how I approach it, anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comments down below or reach out to me directly. But as always, guys, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.